So I've watched hundreds of aspiring data analysts fail to get hired because they all make the exact same mistake. I've been working in data analytics for 4 years at this point, and I'm currently a senior data analyst. And today I'm actually going to be going into why picking your domain first is more important than learning SQL and Python, and why it's actually going to get you hired 3 times faster. This isn't theory. This is what I've seen work in real companies and speaking to different hiring managers about what they actually look for. So I was talking to an old friend the other day, and they wanted to get into data analytics. And the first thing that they said to me was, well, I know SQL and I've done a little bit of Power BI. And that's cool. But what I realized is everybody makes this same generic approach and just learns these tools and skills from the data analytics realm without really having any context. So this is the generic path of that everybody wants to take to get into data analytics, right? They want to learn SQL from random tutorials that they see online or YouTube or whatever. The next couple months, they want to learn Python with generic data sets and just follow tutorials. They want to build, generic Tableau dashboard that has sales and random data from whatever domain it may be. And then after that, you just go on LinkedIn or all these other job sites and you apply for 20 data analyst jobs. And you might get a couple of interviews, but probably no job. And then you feel completely burnt out. So this fails because you're being a generalist in a specialized market. If you're building a portfolio with all those things I just mentioned, your portfolio has zero business context. It's probably all over the place. I have a sales dashboard here. I have medical data over here. The Titanic Kaggle tutorial I have here. Like, these things don't scream that you know anything in depth, but that you just done a whole bunch of different things. So if an interview asks you, why do you want to work here? Then you kind of really have nothing to say and you probably end up lying. And hiring managers go through a bunch of people and hiring a bunch of people. They can pick up on these things pretty well, most of them. If you go through some type of data analytics boot camp, most of the time your resume or your project portfolio looks the same as somebody else. Or you do the same Google certifications or whatever certifications that you do for data analytics, and it all just looks the same. So if you pull up LinkedIn or Indeed and you just go and search data analysts, there's probably going to be a bunch of positions because it's very generic. However, if you say something like healthcare data analyst, marketing data analyst, financial data analyst, it's not just going to have, just SQL and Excel. It's probably going to have something along the lines of certain type of marketing experiences, experience with dealing with financial modeling, risk factors, something like that for financial data analysts. They're going to have more than just SQL, Excel, and Power BI or Tableau. Companies don't hire specific data skills. They don't hire you because you know how to write SQL, because at the end of the day now, everybody does, right? Or everybody can. They actually hire people that solve their specific problems. And I'll just give you an example. If I run a marketing agency, right, and I do ads for different clients, and I have somebody who I look on their resume and they have general SQL, Excel, Power BI, that's fine. But if I have somebody who has 3 years of marketing experience and maybe knows Excel, right? I'm more willing to bet on that person because they know the business and the domain that I deal with. They're probably more likely to get me results. If you just have technical skills, it doesn't speak to what problems you can solve. So going through kind of my background is I went from software quality assurance to software engineering and then eventually to data analytics where I am currently. And to be honest, I really succeeded in the software quality assurance and also the software engineering because back in that time, it was very technical and you just would do the work and kind of you didn't have to think about the business too much, right? But data analytics was a lot different because what I currently work in is marketing data analytics. And in order to get the role, I really needed to know about marketing concepts, principles, um, targeting, segmentation, and these types of things and these different concepts. And being able to kind of speak to those is what will put you over the edge because unlike software engineering, where you do a whole bunch of data structures, algorithms, system design, and that type of thing, the questions in the data analytics role for, let's say, marketing analytics, they're going to ask you marketing questions. How would you determine whether or not a campaign was successful or not? What are you going to say? Right? If you have never studied these types of problems. Now, when I was first interviewing, one of the questions that I was asked is, how is this company different than a competitor? Right? And what are the type of people that would come into this company over that company? And so that is kind of a marketing setup question that goes with positioning and also goes with your target customers or knowing who is more aligned with your brand. And the company that I was applying for was a premium brand over something that was a little bit more simple. So, how I would describe it is this brand was more of a Lexus or Mercedes, or the other one was a Honda or Toyota. Nothing wrong with that, but obviously one is a little bit more premium. Therefore, the blue collar worker that's just struggling to get by, why would I spend marketing dollars on trying to get them to buy a Mercedes or a Lexus when that's not my target customer? So these are the different things that I had to answer in my interview to really understand or really to show that I understood the concept behind marketing and using marketing dollars efficiently to target the right type of customer. And as much as I didn't want to believe it, coming from a very technical background, I was very prideful on my technical ability and being able to build stuff out and automate different things. But in reality, the ones who really like stand out, and I'm a lot further than where I was from the beginning, is the ones that can actually speak business language and also communicate, persuade, influence, some of those bigger stakeholders to make better decisions through data. So why this domain first approach actually works is because you have a more targeted job search for one. Instead of applying to like 1,000 generic data analyst jobs with like 500 applications each, competitors, you'll target more like 50, 25 to 50 really specific ones. And your resume will be tailored to those 25 to specific positions as well as your projects. And you have 10 times better odds of actually getting noticed. And that will just lead to a higher interview to conversion rate, leading to more offers essentially. So, like I just mentioned, you will have a meaningful portfolio projects rather than the generic I analyzed sales data and created a dashboard. You're going to have something very domain specific. So for example, if you worked in you wanted a healthcare data analyst role, like you could say something like built patient readmission prediction model, reducing hospital costs by 15%, 20%, 25%, whatever it may be. I don't work in healthcare, but this is an example. And these are the problems that hiring managers actually care about, right? So another thing is this gives you interview confidence. So you're able to speak industry language. So when I was coming on board, there's things like ROAS, which is return on ad spend. Obviously, ROI is probably a more used term, but return on investment. There are a whole lot of acronyms that are used in every little pocket of certain domains. And once you know those terms, it kind of allows you to speak that same language. You understand their KPIs and what actually matters in their, field. For us, In marketing, there's multi-touch attribution, there's conversion rate, there's not click rate, but there's unique click rate. There's a whole bunch of different things when you're dealing with email versus something else. There's opt-out rates, unsubscribes, a bunch of different marketing terminology, different KPIs that marketing deals with that healthcare won't necessarily care about. And so that's why it's very important to reverse engineer and go with your domain first, and then learn the skills necessary to solve problems in that domain. And when you have a clear path, it's very easy to stick with it. You have a faster learning curve. You're able to learn quicker because you are on one path and you're not just learning SQL in a vacuum. You know what data actually matters and you're able to kind of drown out the noise. You understand what stakeholders will need kind of intuitively, not having to actively think about it because you've done it so many times. And you're actually going to prioritize analysis that drives business value. So now I'm going to get into how to actually audit your background in order to find your domain. So the first thing you want to look at is previous work experience. So if you have worked in something like retail, you probably understand inventory, customer behavior, seasonality, things like that. Worked in a restaurant, you probably understand the operation, supply chain, customer service types of metrics. Hospital, you're going to understand, the flow, billing, regulatory compliance, um, HIPAA, those types of different things. You know what stuff you can share, can't share. Those type of things are important. And if you don't, right, or you want to get into something new, then you can look at your personal hobbies. Do you like sports? Sports analytics is huge, especially with sports betting and all of these different things that are happening. Are you into fitness? Health tech needs analysts, right? You follow stocks, financial data analysts, right? So industries you already kind of consume, you might want to think about those different domains to go into. Next thing is you want to search your market demand, right? Pick a couple of different domains. It doesn't have to be just one, but pick a couple and kind of see how they are progressing, right? So right now, the top 5 domains for data analysts are healthcare, finance. So healthcare is going to be like aging population, digital health records, telehealth growth. Finance is going to be something like fraud detection, risk management, algorithmic trading, fintech boom, e-commerce, retail, so personalization, supply chain optimization, customer analytics. Like I said, marketing, right? Attribution modeling, campaign optimization, customer acquisition, and then something like a SaaS or tech product, right? Product analysis, growth metrics, user behavior, A/B testing. So you really want to find out what you already know or what you really find interest in. And then you can check, and then you want to check the descriptions on some type of job board and see specifically what they are looking for these different specific roles and understand the domain knowledge needed. If you want to start a completely different, different niche than what you previously worked, or you don't know what it is, follow some newsletters, some sports newsletters, healthcare, whatever it may be, and just kind of get used to seeing the data that's involved with these different things. You can watch YouTube experts for those specific domains and just make sure that whatever you pick, you're genuinely interested in. There's nothing worse than being in a role and hating what you do or the data that you're looking at because you don't care about the problems in that domain or industry. And then commit for 6 months. Learn the industry terminology, jargon, understand business metrics, their KPIs that actually matter. So study any type of like regulatory information. So something for like finance or HIPAA for healthcare. Build 2 to 3 domain specific portfolio projects and then network in that domain. So now I'm going to kind of address some of the common fears of this approach, which I hear all the time is, what if I pick the wrong domain? Well, this is what I would say. 6 months of very focused industry learning and deep diving is way better than 2 years of just generic domain surfing, is what I'm going to call it. Skills can be transferred over domains easier after you understand a domain very deeply because you can always pivot with that on your resume. And this is how I see it. In this day and age, it's better to be an expert in one thing than to be mediocre at everything. Another thing I hear is, what if my domain is too niche? So normally niche actually leads to less competition and a lot of the time higher pay. Another thing I hear is, I don't have any experience in any domain. Everyone has to start from somewhere. So your fresh perspective is valuable, based on interest in market demand. So also use your willingness to learn the domain as the differentiator. Another thing that I really get is, won't I limit my job options because I'm being very specific instead of, sending applications out to all of these different data analyst roles? Being specialized is what wins in this day and age. Generic is becoming more and more invisible in 2025 and beyond, and specialized is more hireable and memorable. So this is going to be the end of the video. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Let me know what domain you're interested in. If I have enough people specifically interested in marketing analytics, which is what I am specialized in, then I'll do a whole video on marketing analytics specifically and kind of give you some real world examples of what I deal with on a day to day. So leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel. Love, peace, and chicken grease.